Welcome to Chop Shop Motors. My name is Clay, and I'd like to introduce you to the next project we're going to work on, and that's this Chevelle right here. So it's a 71 Chevelle, and we bought it as a flip project, so there was never any intention of having it stay in camp. We were always buying it to eventually sell, and we've had it for about a year. We've been a little slow in getting it ready to go, so it's getting pretty close. So tonight, it doesn't want to idle quite right. I put a motor in it, rebuilt a motor for it, and it's got a 350 and a 350 behind it, and rebuilt the motor. It had a knock in it, and it had some damage to the front end, and while we had the front sheet metal off, we pulled the motor out, and I rebuilt the motor. And hang on one second, we'll wait for the airplane to pass. So filming outside has its own set of hurdles, one being pretty close to an airport. We get a lot of aircraft noise, and the other being pretty close to a big brown dog. We get a lot of dog barking. So there's always something that's going to interrupt our video sessions. But for this little introduction, we'll kind of keep it quick. So rebuilt the motor, put it in, replaced the front fender, front bumper, redid the quarter support, had a little bit of damage, we fixed that. But overall it was a pretty light collision. It certainly looked horrible, but in reality it was pretty light. So that stuff's all fixed, and now it's time to get it running. While it'd been sitting for, you know, a year at my place, and then probably been sitting for a year or more at the previous owner, so it picked up some crap in the fuel when we went and started it, and so I got to pull the carburetor apart, clean it all out, and make sure that the carburetor is good to go, and then we should be fine. I'll take you along as we tear the carburetor apart, put it in the cleaner, give it a little once over and a tune up. And when it ran on the bottle before we pulled the fuel out of the tank, it actually ran and idled really nicely. So the carburetor was in a functional state before we pulled whatever crap was in the tank right into the motor. So let's pull the carburetor off and take a look inside. Okay, we're under the hood of this 71 Chevelle. We're going to pull the carburetor off and give it a once over, so you'll get to kind of follow along. First thing we're going to do is pull the fuel line off. These little 2-barrel Rochester carburetors are pretty dependable and pretty straightforward. I'm pretty sure this is a Rochester. Actually just says GM on it, so okay, pull the fast idle solenoid loose, pop off the throttle linkage, has a P-clip on it that you don't want to lose, so put it right intake manifold cavity. Move the return spring, let it hang there. Got another very one-off clip that holds the choke. What is that? Thermostat, I guess, is really what it is. The choke thermostat that sits on the intake. For some reason, I don't think that's what it's called. But for what we're doing, that's what we'll call it. Pull the base nuts loose. Everything's going to kind of go in that same spot. When I put this together, I did not rebuild the carburetor. That's why it's a little on the grungy looking side. The goal of this project when we bought it wasn't to necessarily restore the car. The idea was, let's get it running, put it back together so somebody who wanted a Chevelle could make it their own. So that was kind of the premise all along. We've been pretty good about sticking to it. We haven't overdone, which is always a little tough on projects that you bring home. Sometimes you want to do everything and make everything perfect. This wasn't really a restoration project as much as maybe more of a preservation. So let's see if we can get down to that. Base knot down there. I have to share, I'm always a little paranoid when I pull washers and stuff off the carburetor. I always make sure and capture them and take the time to take them off, where you could absolutely pull it off with the carburetor and make it easy, but I'm always nervous that something will go down the intake. So I take a little extra care to try to get them off as best I can. So we'll put a little universal on that. It just looks like a little impact socket. It's a little snap-on universal, super handy, even for your quarter drive. Fish out the loose parts with a magnet. See if we've forgotten anything, which we certainly have. One last thing. Pull the vacuum line off of the back of the carburetor for the power brake booster. And there we have it. We are going to go ahead and pull the base off of here, although the only real reason I'm doing it is I just want to have it completely apart and easy to get access to. When I blow it out. And yes, it's really good if you do the work really close to your toolbox. Okay.
It wasn't pulling hard enough.
Mr. Rich, we've got some guests, so
Awesome.
come on in.
What are we doing?
We're pulling the carburetor apart for the Chevelle.
Nice.
Okay, so everything's here. We'll pull the idle adjustments. No videos complete without Winston, so he has chimed in. We'll pull the rubber vacuum pieces off, and we will put this in the carburetor cleaner. We'll bring you back after it's all clean. We're putting the carburetor back together, and we pulled it out of the carburetor cleaner, and it was sat in it overnight. Pulled it out, rinsed it, blew it all off. It's super clean. I'll give you a close-up of it. The carburetor cleaner is some pretty horrible smelling stuff, but interesting part is it absolutely smells like a garage. And so when you walk in and you smell it, it's like, yep, that's the smell of a garage. So parts are clean. Now it's time to reassemble the carburetor and see how it runs. So let me show you what the parts look like after we clean it. Okay, there's the base, the fuel nozzles that go inside the Venturi. This is the carburetor body. This is the part that has the different float items, needle and seat. Well, needle and seat actually goes in this one on these carburetors, but this is the part that houses the fuel. That's hole right there is where the accelerator pump goes in, and the accelerator pump spring down inside of it. If we can, yeah, there we go. Down inside of it is where the actual jets go. So Then these two holes are the venturis. Those nozzles go right in the middle there. So this is pretty much what it looks like after it comes out of the carburetor cleaner. So this is called a 2-jet. I think I called it a Rochester. I'm pretty sure it's a Rochester, but it's called a 2-jet. So these are the pieces. Over here are the gaskets and miscellaneous small parts that I took out. We'll reuse those and put this thing back together. So let's get rolling. Okay, first thing we'll do is we'll flip this over and we'll put the base on it and get that piece assembled. Pretty easy to do, pretty straightforward. You just got to put the gasket back on it, line it up, and go from there. Again, we want to be really careful, kind of ginger with this gasket, because we certainly, this is a space where we could absolutely derail the project for the night if we get a little too carried away with this gasket. So we'll do our best to kind of give it a light once over, but really just getting any dirt, crud that might cause a problem for us off. Be careful with it. Set it back on. Got a fair number of small parts here, so we will find the ones that hold the base on. Some bigger Phillips. Make sure they're wiped off. Drop them in. Snug everything down. I'm going to put the mixture screws in there real quick while I'm at it. I usually start at about a turn and a half out on pretty much all the carburetors I do, and then just adjust from there. And you want to be careful not to jam these down against the seat. Kind of sensitive to when it's about to bottom out. 1.5. Okay. Put the cap on that because we know it needs it. Couple vacuum lines to cap off. Okay, we're going to take our tip cleaner, which is just a welding tip cleaner. I'm going to pull out one of the smaller ones, and we're just going to make sure that all of these little passages are open, and we definitely don't want to get rough with these, and you don't want to open them up past what they are. So if your tip cleaner doesn't quite fit, because they're on this particular carburetor, they're somewhat progressive. They have some smaller ones and some bigger ones. If it doesn't fit, then just go the smaller size. Go down these main tubes. These orifices are not very big, so it's pretty easy for them to get plugged up. You're going to kind of check all these little spots. and then you're gonna blow it out one more time. So let me go blow it out. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna drop in the jets. You gotta make sure they're clean inside and they look nice. They do. Just dropping pieces in as we need to. Spring in here. It traps the check ball. This actually goes on here. Slide the accelerator pump into the mechanism here. We had pulled this out so it doesn't run any risk of being damaged. We have this small little keeper that holds it on there. That is now together. Okay, so that piece, just kind of making sure, you just have to make sure, double check that all your stuff that you need on there is on there. We'll now put the seat in, screw it in. Okay. Needle goes in. The float is just about ready to slide in. Okay, so I'm checking the height on the float, and the top out height looks right, but I don't think the bottom height is right. So I'm going to give it, it's a way less critical adjustment, but when the float's down, I want the needle to actually let some fuel in. So I don't want it to be quite such a minimum amount. Okay. So this piece is together. As you can see, the float's in there. This pin floats. It doesn't get locked in, but the float bowl traps it. So in essence, it does get locked in. Now, I actually, on this carburetor, this guy has to go on there because it's underneath there. So I'll slip that off real quick and slide it in there. You guys were probably saying, oh, you're making a mistake. And you were right. I just couldn't hear you. Make it no. Okay, so slide this off. Spin this around that way. There we go. Then that goes on. Gasket goes on. Float goes down. It's all quite ingenious how it goes together. So basically there's a shield on it. You can kind of see there's a shield right here that keeps the fuel from splashing on all over. It kind of contains it and lets it fill up the bowl. Okay, so we have that. Everything's together there. Those pieces are in. There's nothing else over here that I'm missing. Good. Over here, I have some linkage that I'll have to sort out, but I think We're ready to slide this together. So it has a spring in the accelerator pump. That's a critical piece. Things kind of slide down. You don't really want to force any of this stuff. I usually kind of work the accelerator pump. Just to kind of make sure everything's cool. Okay, so what I suggest at this point, and this is me, as you could tell with putting the top gasket on, oftentimes you kind of go together, come apart, go together, come apart, go together, come apart. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one screw in the top, make sure it's cool, and I'm going to get all the linkage on. Because I had all the linkage off, and I want to get all that on. So I'll figure that out and I'll bring you back. Okay, linkage is on. I am putting the top screws back in. We're getting close. Kind of racing the disc. I'm almost out of space on this for this disc that's in the camera, so I'm moving quick. Okay. We're going to get a new fuel filter, so I'm not going to play with that. I'll leave that till tomorrow. Put this piece on. I'm going to pull that rubber boot off of the wrong place. Put it on the right place. The other one is going to be for the distributor. Ported vacuum, so the distributor will react the way we want it to. It's a little bit cool out tonight. Winston hasn't been out running around barking. This will be one of the few videos I think that will be on Chop Shop Motors that doesn't have Winston in the soundtrack somewhere. I get to do that again. I'm gonna pull that off and put the linkage on. Okay, so what we have here is one Rochester 2-jet. All done. Ready to go on. Nice and clean. All the pieces are back on. We only have enough pieces left over to put the fuel filter on. Success. At least this part is. So thanks for following along as we did a cleanup on this little 2-barrel for the 71 Chevelle. It's another step along the way of getting that little Chevelle running. Tomorrow we'll go out and do a little bit more work on it, and we'll film that. This is probably the end of this episode. Help us keep this channel going. Please subscribe. We need to grow our subscribers, and you're the way we do it. So if you like this stuff, subscribe, hit the like button. We love hearing comments from all of you. A few comments have started to come in. It's really quite exciting to be doing this and getting it off the ground and having the two-way dialogue with those who are watching it. Like, share, subscribe. We're super happy to be doing this. It's a lot of fun. And I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors, and we'll see you on the next project.